In this part, we will work on adding materials to all of our scene elements, and we will also work on doing some test renders with those materials. All right, so for the pumpkin and for the skeleton, I'm going to use the quick surface material, since we have created all the colors and attributes in subs, and the materials are just going to take those and inherit them further. So let's press tab and create quick surface material. And this one will be pumpkin. And what you need to do is just to select the material, and you will just drop this here. So we can just say that this pumpkin, click, hold, and drop it here. Okay, so in the primitive path. Then we will do the same for the skeleton. Skeleton will be dropped here. Okay, so import bones. So let's take a look at the pumpkin material surface attributes. So basically, all the colors that we have, the CD attribute, it will come through into this display color. So we don't need to do anything there. The only thing that I'm going to change is the roughness. I'm going to make the surface a bit more rough, something like 375. And then we will add some subsurface scattering. Subsurface is a quite expensive operation, so I would not be rendering as I'm doing this. So this is the value that we have, 0.1 subsurface, and then the scale would define how big are going to be the subsurface radius. Okay, so we want quite small radius to capture all the small details and the thin areas on this surface. After this, we are going to look at the bones material. So the bones is also pretty straightforward. I'm going to go to specular and reduce the roughness so the bones are a little bit more shiny. Going to reduce the index, the IOR, a bit, something like 1.4. And what else can we do here? I think other than that, we can maybe add some sheen with a smaller radius. The sheen would just create like some kind of bright outer rim. It's quite handy for something like bones. Okay, so let's quickly check these materials. Also, we can create a quick material for the ground from a preset. Let's put down material linker. So the material linker would give us some nice ready-to-use materials. Let's give us some room here. So the one we want to use, if we go to catalog, is going to be the asphalt. And you can see the material linker would also see all the materials that you have in your scene. Okay, so let's take the asphalt. Let's click, hold, and drag it to the material list. And then the actual material assignment, I usually like to do through the assign material. So actually, yeah, I don't think we even needed to do anything here. Let's just keep this to default. Okay, so let's do assign material. And we are going to start creating our material assignments. So generally how I like to do this, I select the primitives by control clicking on this, and then we can go into sub import pumpkin. Okay, in the material path, again click on this one, click on plus for the materials, and then choose the pumpkin. And then click on plus, primitives. Let's go and choose the skeleton. It has to be actually the primitives. I think it's called auto. Yeah, let's do auto. And then let's do click, materials, skeleton. Okay, then let's click on plus, primitives, grid ground, and then click materials, asphalt. Okay, so far we have 3 materials. Let's take a look at the scene. Karma XPU. All right, so it looks pretty cool. I think the skeleton is a little bit too shiny. We can maybe even also reduce the IOR a bit, so something like 0.35. I made the roughness something like 35 as well. Something more like that. Okay, so that's our skeleton. You can also reduce the specular a bit so it doesn't shine out that much. So the asphalt texture is actually looking, that is way too big, and we can edit it. If in the material linker we go to the material list asphalt, right click and do edit material properties. In the edit asphalt we can click set or create to the texture scale, and we can set it to something bigger like 25. So now you would see we would see the details much better. And then in the bump scale we can also set or create and set the bump scale to something like 5. Okay, so now we have this visible in a much better way. The other thing that I usually like to do while I'm doing look development, I like to see things through the ACES color, and you can go to the open display options. So if you click and hold on this open color correction, you can tone map everything with ACES, and then this is basically what I'm aiming to see. Okay, so because of the subsurface, everything looks way too bright and shiny. So this is what we have to work with for now, but we will be using some sampling optimization and some denoising to make these sparkles go away. Okay, for now, if we want, we can just put the subsurface to 0 and just take a look at the pumpkin. It will give us a little bit of a cleaner render. All right, so this is look development and materials on our objects. Now let's do some look development for the smoke parts, and then we will do the candles. Okay, so I'm just going to add the smoke to the equation. Okay, so now we have the smoke, and you can see it just takes the density. Let's go back to Karma, to the viewport. So let's create the material for the smoke. Okay, so I'm going to create a material builder. Actually, material library, sorry. Karma material library is where we will be building our smoke materials for the green smoke and for the dry ice. Let's dive inside, and we'll need 2 Karma materials. So Karma pyro material. The first one is going to be Karma pyro material ice smoke, and the second one is going to be mouth smoke. So of course it's good to render as we go, but in order to keep things optimized and light, I'm going to set the material values first, and you can definitely play with them, and then we will be doing test renders. So let's dive inside to the smoke material. It's a pretty simple material. We mainly need to make sure that the color is going to be matching what we have. So 0 in red, 0.983 here, and in green, and 0.327 in blue. Then we want to increase the density to 3.5. So the smoke is going to be a bit denser. And the other thing that I did, I added some fire from the density field. So you can enable the emission. It's called fire here, but we will be using density for that. So what we can do is actually we can make the smoke brighter in certain areas based on this gradient. And we actually want to keep the same color. So I'm going to unroll the color palette, and I'm going to set the color to be the same. So 0, 983, and 327. Okay, and then this part we will drag more. Oops, let's press Ctrl Z. 327. Okay, so let's put this in to something like 35. Cool, so we got this. I'm gonna set everything to manual. For some reason something keeps updating here. So we are gonna keep it like this, and I'm gonna increase the intensity scale to 5. And in the bindings, it's important to make sure that the brightness, the emission intensity, is coming from the density. Okay, so that's our fire material. Everything else is pretty much the same. So now we can apply the material. Oops, let's go back. So let's go into assign material. Let's add plus. Let's control click to select our ice smoke, and let's click here, go to materials, and choose Karma ice smoke. Okay, let's do a test render. Go to auto update, and then Karma XPU. And there we go. So we have some nice smoke with some emissiveness close to the base. Okay, next we will be creating a material for the mouth, mini VK. Let's go back to the material library, and let's dive inside of the smoke for the mouth. So this one is also pretty straightforward. We can set the density to be controlled by a ramp. So I usually do this to sharpen up some of the areas of the density. So we can set this to 0.025 to cut the volume a little bit in the not so dense areas. And then if we want to make this brighter, we can increase the albedo contribution, which is just white color, so it will be contributing to the brightness of the smoke. And then additionally, I want to make this smoke brightness much higher, so something like 5. And let's now plug this into the selection in the assignment. So let's click on plus, control click. Let's find our mouth smoke, and let's find the materials mouth smoke, and let's do okay. Okay, let's go to Karma XPU. Cool, so now we have this here. So what I did for the final, I actually have the smoke much brighter than you can see. I think we need to just do this, yeah. Okay, so you can see that the smoke is brighter here. And that's because I'm having an extra volume scattering in the smoke. So you can achieve that by putting down Karma setup, and then in here we are not going to precompile shaders for now, so let's just close this. So in the Karma render settings, if we go to limits, basically the volume limit's set to 0, but if you increase this, it will let more light rays to bounce inside of the smoke volume, right? So the more you increase it, the more bounces you'll have, and the more accurate the result is going to be. But it is going to be pretty heavy for the render. It will add more noise, it will need more samples to clean up, and adding it to everything, especially the back fog box, to the ice smoke, is going to be way too expensive. So what I ended up doing, I created render geometry settings, and just for the mouth smoke I went to limits, and just for this one I put the limit to 1. So set of create, you can set the limit to 1, and you should see that now we should get brighter volume. So it will need some time to update. I'll just do restart render. And there we go. So now you can see we have a brighter smoke that looks more like dry ice. It will scatter more light inside, and we're only kind of sacrificing this area. We're not really doing it everywhere. Okay, so that's exactly what I wanted to have. Okay, let's stop the render. So we have pretty much all the components ready, except for the candles. Okay, so for the candles, what we are going to do is we are going to steal some of the elements and some of the materials from the original setup that came from the shelf. So if we get outside here, just go to OBJ. In the OBJ. So in the pyro candle flame, if you dive inside, there is actually a LOP network. I'm going to set this to manual so it doesn't load. So if we dive inside, we would see the actual candle look development LOP, which has all the materials in, and it actually already looks quite nice. I didn't want to reinvent anything. I just wanted to render it as is. You can see it's like a pretty nice material here. So what we can do, actually, we can just grab this material library. We can Control C, and then let's go to our main LOP network in the Halloween, dive inside, and then we'll do Control V. So this will basically bring all the materials here, and the only thing that we'll need to do is just to change the paths where they are getting assigned to. So let's get out of this render, and in the material library, what I'm going to do is basically just drag and drop for the candles pyro. I'm going to drag and drop it here. For the wax, I'm going to drag and drop here, and then for the this one, and you can also control click, that also works, like Wix. I think it's going to give you a cleaner path. Yeah, let's actually do that. Control click wax, and control click pyro. Okay, so this is done. And the only thing that I wanted to change, if we go into material library, wax has some displacement. I actually don't want any displacement here, so I'm just going to disconnect because we don't really need displacement at that scale. The other thing that would be a little bit different is the subsurface scale. I think we will need to change the scale quite a bit. So I think we'll need to divide it by 10 in both to get a more realistic result. Okay, so something more like this. But let's test how everything is going to work. I'm going to connect this to our chain. Okay, now we have the candles. There are going to be some adjustments that we'll make to the candle flame as well. Actually, yeah, let's do that now. So if you go to the flame, in the bindings, it is trying to pull in something that does not exist in both of these. So we're just going to clean it up. If I press Control and middle mouse click, I think it should clean it up. Yeah, and it will bring it to the default, that is temperature, and same here, Control click. So we actually don't have any temperature on these candles. We only have a flame field. So we will need to adjust the material to use the flame field as the intensity here. So we can just change this to flame. However, for the color volume, there's a very specific thing that gives it this very cool bluish color at the base, and it's called the blue zone mask. It comes with the shelf asset. So we want to use the blue zone mask as a volume as the field here instead of temperature. So we can actually find the name in the candle. If we go back to the candle flame, there is, if we go to pyrobic volume here, let's actually stop. I don't want it to cook. I'm just gonna go to the first frame. So pyrobic volume in the bindings fire, you would find that field here. So let's select this, Control C, and now let's go back to our Halloween LOPNet, dive inside the material library for the candle, dive inside the flame, and Control V it here. So that is basically what we needed to do to make the fire work. The other thing is a lot of these source ranges would get lost because we just copied the material over. So we'll need to adjust them. Let's just delete channels. This is pretty simple. I'm gonna set it to manual so nothing updates. The 0 to 1, right click, delete channels, 2500 for the intensity of the fire, and then the smoke is right click, delete channels. Let's set this to 250. Smoke color, let's delete channels. This was 0.5. Okay, this is just for the candle flame, and then the rest is fine. We didn't have any different things. Okay, so this is good to go. All right, so let's now do a test render, and let's actually, before we do that, let's save as shading. Let's go to auto update. Let's go to the camera view, and let's go to frame 72, 73. Okay, let's go to perspective and use Karma XPU. Great. So we have our candles, we have our smoke, we have our smoke from the eyes. I have turned off subsurface again just to keep render a bit light. We're gonna turn it on for the final, but there's one more thing that we're missing, and that is the brightness of the fire. It needs to be used as the geometry light, and this is actually one of very cool features in Houdini 21. So we can, let's go back to the Houdini VK. We can actually now have the geometry light work seamlessly with Karma XPU. So all we need to do is to create a geometry light. So press tab, type geometry light, and we will assign it, sorry, not the ice smoke, we will assign it to the candle's pyro. But there is a little gotcha moment here. So because we have 3 different candles, the geometry light, first of all, if we are sourcing it from a volume, it needs to be set to volume API. And then to make this work properly, it needs to be assigned to volume primitives. But since we have 3 different candles here, we have 3 different volume primitives, and we can't just assign it to all of them. At least it didn't work for me. So if I press Control and click here, we can now open it up and assign each of the geometry lights to each of the primitives. So I'm going to copy it one more time. I'm going to assign it, Control click, to the volume 2, sorry, volume 1, and then volume 2. Copy, Control click, volume 2. And there we go. So now all we need to do is to set some intensity. You can even set different exposure intensities to each of the candles to have some variation. So for example, that one's 6.5, this one will be 7.5, and the last one would be also 6.5. And the coolest part is it will take the material colors and add them to the light glow. So you don't need to do anything on top of that. So let's now render this one, Karma XPU. So this should now brighten up our candle volumes. Okay, I'm going to pause the video. All right, so it's again, it's going to be scattering through multiple volumes. It's going to be quite expensive, but you can see now there's a little bit of glow around these candles, and they are also brightening up the actual candles themselves. All right. So if you want the candles to be a bit brighter, you can go into their material. I think for the original, I forgot to adjust the wax scale, so that's why it was the candles were much brighter than they are here. You can see there are these kind of white orangey wax colors. So if you change this back, it will adjust it. Let me just pause the video so it will do it. Yeah, so now you can see that the candle wax is the same color as I had originally. The other thing is you can see the skeleton is a little bit brighter here. Maybe what we can do is we can darken it up here. We can just say the base color should be 0.5, and we shouldn't get that much brightness. It takes a moment to update everything. Maybe 0.5 is too much. Let's do 0.75. So it will make the overall the skeleton a bit darker. So for the final render, I used Karma XPU. So if we select the Karma render settings, use the XPU. Let's actually stop the render while we're at it. So for the XPU, I used 128 samples. That was not enough. You can see that there is still a little bit of flickering, even though I used denoise. There is some flickering, mostly in the subsurface, because it's such a detailed mesh, and there are a lot of things to be calculated internally, so the subsurface is flickering still a little bit. But you can definitely try more samples. On average, this image was rendering 10 minutes per frame on 3090. You can definitely try more samples. If you want to render animation, you can go a bit more conservative, as I did, with the lower 720p resolution and lower samples. The volume limit was set to 0, and let's see what else do we have. Definitely let's turn on the velocity blur for all the smoke and volumes to be using the velocity motion blur. And then in the image output filters, if you go to denoiser, I used the optics denoiser. So if we take a look at the render result here, and maybe I'll adjust the skeleton to something like 55. Let's use the specular even more. Yeah, let's maybe do 75 and less specular. Okay, let's try that. And let's see. I'm going to start the render, pause the video, and then we'll come back. So you can see with the denoising we get a much cleaner result, much faster. Of course, some of the areas will need to have more time to get the details back in after the denoising, but basically this was the lifesaver. And again, this is the result without the subsurface. I'm actually looking at it and it looks pretty similar, although you can see with the subsurface you get some kind of inner glow and the pumpkin feels a bit more alive, right, as if there's really some light is getting scattered on the inside. And then especially after we would use something like compositing the subsurface back in, we can push those areas even more and it will make the pumpkin really kind of feel organic and glow, right? Whereas without the subsurface it is just more it looks more like plastic or synthetic. Okay, so it's really up to you. For the final, we can just put the subsurface back in 0.1 and this will make the pumpkin a little bit brighter. Okay, so basically this is it for the shading part. For the next part I will show you how I did the camera animation, and I'll show you the final render settings and AOVs, and we'll wrap the lighting and rendering part with that video. And you can see with the subsurface we're getting this really nice inner glow. Okay, I'll see you in the next part.